I'm Pastor Carlos Jones, president of the Fort Bend Ministers Against Crime. District Attorney Brian Middleton and the Fort Bend Pastors Association work closely together to make sure that we are holding each other accountable in making Fort Bend one of the safest places in the country. As we have worked together, he called me and told me about this story that had taken over in the news. He also shared with me that he was getting an outside source to do some investigation on this. We actually had Dr. Gilmore come over and share her findings with the pastors. Afterwards, we interrogated her. We asked some very biased and pointed questions, and through that we were able to discover some really great things about Fort Bend. I know that watching this video is going to be great because it gives us education, but it also brings about conversation, and one that we have to really deal with. What are we experiencing here when we drive down the freeways and roadways here in Fort Bend County? At the end of it, we were satisfied with the research and we were satisfied with the findings, and it proves that Fort Bend County is one of the safest places in the country. And I'm so happy that we are part of the leadership here, and I'm grateful that we'll be able to work together to make sure that Fort Bend County stays safe.
Hi, my name is Brahim Khawaja with the Fort Bend County District Attorney's Office. We saw headlines recently that shocked us. These headlines suggested that African American drivers in Fort Bend County were more likely to get pulled over than any other group. It should shock you too. At the District Attorney's Office, when we learned of these headlines, we instantly jumped into action, as we should. We take our commitment to justice seriously, and under the leadership of our District Attorney, Brian Middleton, we commissioned an independent study to look deeply into this report. It is our duty as prosecutors to seek justice. A better future together is not promised, it's a shared responsibility. And so when something like this comes to our attention, we did not look away. We faced it head on. And we were pleasantly surprised with the results that the independent investigation that we commissioned entailed.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Russell Terry with the Fort Bend County District Attorney's Office, Public Integrity and Civil Rights Division, and I have been in law enforcement for nearly 25 years. Within those 25 years, I've learned that it is difficult for an officer to determine an individual's race prior to a traffic stop being conducted due to factors such as lighting, weather, speed, and tinted windows. It should also be noted that the law requires officers to collect racial profiling data post-traffic stop. This is why Fort Bend County District Attorney Brian Middleton wanted data examined and retained criminologist Dr. Elizabeth Gilmore to conduct a study in Fort Bend County on racial profiling. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Elizabeth Gilmore.
Over the past several months, you may have seen headlines saying that Black drivers in Fort Bend are stopped and searched far out of proportion to their share of the population. These stories are powerful, and they do not land lightly. For a community as diverse as Fort Bend, one that has worked hard to build trust between residents and law enforcement, uncertainty about whether the people that are sworn to protect you are actually doing so fairly is not a small thing. On February 27, 2026, Houston Public Media reported that Black residents, who represent approximately 23% of Fort Bend County's population, accounted for nearly 40% of traffic stops by the Sheriff's Office. Weeks later, the Defender Network went further. Their March 13th report added that Black drivers accounted for the largest share of vehicle searches and referenced national research suggesting that those searches were less likely to uncover contraband, implying that those searches were not only more frequent, but less justified. Two reports, two serious claims, one community that deserved the full picture. Both stories drew from the same single publicly available state report, free, online, accessible to anyone. And both took one or two numbers from a data set that contained dozens of relevant variables and built a narrative around them. So here is what neither story told you. In 97.9% of stops, deputies did not know the driver's race before making the stop. The deputy saw a vehicle, not the driver, not their face, and not their race. The decision to stop that vehicle was made before knowing anything about who was driving. They did not tell you that warning and citation rates for Black, Hispanic, white, and Asian drivers fall within just a couple of percentage points of each other across nearly 13,000 stops. They did not tell you that searches were rare, affecting only approximately 3% of all drivers that were stopped, or that on average, more than half of those searches found contraband. And the Defenders Network's central claim that Black drivers had the largest share of vehicle searches is inaccurate. When District Attorney Brian Middleton asked my colleague Kevin Buckler and me to do an independent analysis, we made one commitment from the start. We would look at everything, not just one or two numbers. Pre-stop race knowledge, reasons for the stop, outcomes, searches, contraband, use of force. We did not start with a conclusion and work backward. We examined the complete record and contextualized those findings. And before I share what we found, I want to address something important about how both articles measured disparity, because it matters for everything that follows. Both stories compared Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office traffic stop rates against the demographics of the entire county. And on the surface, that may seem like a reasonable approach, but a fair comparison must start with the right foundation. When you measure an agency's stops against a population it does not primarily patrol, the comparison will never give you an accurate picture, regardless of how the agency is performing. For that kind of analysis to be meaningful, you have to start with the right population. And in this case, the entire county is not it. Because the Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office does not primarily patrol the entire county. Let me explain. Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office deputies are predominantly assigned to the unincorporated areas of Fort Bend County, the communities that fall outside of the city limits. These are the primary areas where the deputies work every day. Sugar Land has its own police department. Missouri City has its own. Stafford, Rosenberg, Richmond, and Fulshire, all separate agencies with their own officers dedicated to serving the people that live in those areas. So when the news articles compared Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office stops to the demographics of the entire county, including those cities with their own separate police departments, that calculation was never going to produce an accurate picture. Not because of anything the deputies did, but because they included communities that Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office does not primarily patrol, making the comparison flawed from the start. Now, here is what a complete analysis of the Fort Bend County's Sheriff's Office traffic stop data actually shows. Nearly every stop begins with the deputy seeing a vehicle, not the driver, not their face, and not their race. Once stopped, warning and citation rates do not differ meaningfully across racial groups, varying by no more than 2.7 percentage points across nearly 13,000 stops. Searches of drivers were far from routine. Only about 3% of drivers were ever searched. And while the amount of contraband varied depending on the group, overall, more than half of those searches produced seized contraband. Both articles were focused on the relationship between law enforcement and minority community members during traffic stops. And that is a legitimate and important focus. But you cannot tell that story fully without also telling people how safe those community members are. Neither article did that. Not one word about the safety of those very residents those stories claim to be speaking for. As a criminologist and someone who works closely with communities that are historically underrepresented and may not have always experienced law enforcement as a source of safety, I take seriously what it means to tell Black and Hispanic residents that the data show that they are being treated unfairly. And if that's what the data shows, we have a duty to say that plainly and without hesitation. But if the data shows something very different, then we have an equal duty to say that just as loudly. 2 news outlets saw racial profiling concerns in the Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office 2025 traffic stop data. 12,816 traffic stops reviewed in their entirety do not. When coverage raises questions about whether minority residents are being treated equitably during law enforcement encounters, safety is not a footnote. It is at the heart of the question. Fort Bend County's violent crime rate, which includes murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, as defined by the FBI, is approximately 69% below the Texas state average, based on the Texas Department of Public Safety crime data. It is approximately 61% below the national average, and it is 30 to 60% lower than similarly populated Texas counties, including Collin, Denton, Montgomery, Tarrant, and Travis. That is not a marginally safer community. That is an exceptionally safe one by any measure compared to the state, the nation, and similarly sized Texas counties alike. And that matters for every resident in Fort Bend County, but it matters particularly and in a profound way for the communities that those articles focused on. And here's why. Nationally, homicide is the leading cause of death for Black youth between the ages of 10 and 24. But the only group in this country for who that is true. For every other racial group, accidents are the leading cause of death in that range. And when you understand that reality, you understand why the safety of Black residents in Fort Bend County is not peripheral to this conversation. It is at the very center of it. The national homicide victimization rate for Black Americans is approximately 26.6 per 100,000, based on the 2023 CDC data, which is the most current available. Fort Bend County's overall homicide rate is approximately 3.8 per 100,000. That is not a minor difference. That is a fraction of the national rate. And now I want to go a step further. Using the county-level data from the Texas Department of Public Safety, we calculated a homicide rate specific to Black residents in Fort Bend County. Not the countywide average, the rate for Black residents themselves. Looking at the most recent 3 years of data, that number is approximately 3.8 per 100,000, 86% below the national rate that I just mentioned. And in the most recent year alone, 2025, it was even lower, 2.95 per 100,000, or 89% below the national rate. This is not a one-year outlier. This is a trend, and one that has continued even as the county's population has grown. Hispanic residents share a similar story. Fort Bend County's overall violent crime rate suggests that they experience violent crime victimization at rates far below national averages for their demographic group as well. In Fort Bend County, which is one of the most diverse communities in the United States, outcomes like these are genuinely rare. They do not happen by accident. They reflect something real about this community and the people who serve it. 2 news stories raised serious concerns about whether Black residents in Fort Bend County were being targeted by local law enforcement. Neither one told those same residents that they live in one of the safest and most diverse communities in the United States. Before we close, I want to say something directly to this community. I took the concerns that those headlines raised seriously. Any researcher committed to the truth should. My colleague and I examined every variable to give this community an honest answer. And this is that answer. The numbers in the report do not say that Fort Bend is perfect, and they don't say that the work is done. But what they do say is that in this county, the findings do not show meaningful differences in how traffic stops are resolved across various racial groups, and that Black and Hispanic residents that live here are living in one of the safest counties in the United States. My name is Elizabeth Gilmore, and I was retained by District Attorney Brian Middleton to examine the complete data set and to report what it shows. No imported assumptions, no preferred conclusions, just the data. And Fort Bend County is doing something right, something genuinely rare, something worth knowing. And the people of this community and the residents and the law enforcement agencies that serve them have every reason to be proud. The data show a community that is both safe and consistent in how it treats people, and that is not common. But that is Fort Bend County.